Hi, I'm Maril MacDonald. 27 years ago, I founded my firm, Gagan MacDonald, on the premise that organizations don't transform, people do. Since then, as we've worked with many of the world's most admired global companies to navigate the human struggle of change, one thing has remained true: leadership matters a lot. Let Go and Lead is a podcast about what it takes to be a leader and how great ones balance the head and the heart to transform the companies that transform the world. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Geoff Woods, an accomplished business leader, author, and pioneer who helps executives use AI to deepen their strategic thinking. Geoff helps leaders flip the script with AI, going from using it for quick answers to actually having AI ask the questions and push their thinking. We get into his approach as well as his book, The AI-Driven Leader. We also discuss change adoption and how the work for leaders with AI ultimately starts with a deeper evaluation of how one's time and energy could be directed to make the most impact. Whether you're leading a team, a company, or just beginning to step into your own leadership identity, there's something here for you. So get comfortable and get ready to let go and lead. Hi, Geoff. It's so great to have you here. Welcome to Let Go and Lead.
Thank you for having me.
Really excited. As I mentioned, as we were just chatting a minute ago, I saw you speak at the Women's Presidents Organization annual conference and just was smitten. And so really, really glad to have you join us. Last year you authored the book, The AI-Driven Leader, which I thought was such an interesting concept, and really anxious to talk to you about some of the transformational shifts that you're seeing with that. So
I'm curious, what about the title caught you?
I thought what caught me was the idea that there's so much conversation around AI in terms of efficiencies and writing emails and things like that. And your whole concept is all around using it in your leadership journey and to lead the company. And so that's what I thought was very novel to a lot of the conversations I'm hearing as of late.
Mm,
So really
that's
appreciated
great.
that. And I think we'll probably get into a lot of that, or certainly hope we will. Um, but before we do that, let's just talk for a minute about kind of your leadership journey. One thing I
Sure.
remembered was you were chief growth officer at Jindal Power and Steel, I think I said that wrong. You were chief growth officer at Jindal Steel and Power. And I remember a staggering statistic that market cap grew from $750 million to $12 billion. Did I get that right?
Yeah, it was a good 4 years.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. What happened and what was behind that transformation?
4 drivers. When I stepped in, I had already been the coach to the chairman of the board and to his whole executive team prior to joining them full time when I had built a company behind a book called The One Thing. And so I knew the company well. And when I sold my interest in The One Thing, the chairman of Jindal Steel called me and said, "Hey, would you come in-house?" And I said, "Maybe. What's the job?" And he said, "You know our business better than I do. You tell me." And that's when I realized, okay, this is a large company, about 100,000 people around the world, multiple companies that rolled up to an umbrella company, almost like Alphabet is to Google. And I saw an opportunity that if you played at a group level and identified the core drivers of growth that were timeless and universal and could drive them through every operating company, maybe you could unlock certain synergies, or it just felt like it would grow. And those 4 drivers for me were strategy, execution, people, and technology. And so a lot of what I did was sitting down with every operating company, making sure strategy, they were clear on what their long-term competitive advantage was that they were building. I bet most leaders who are listening to this, if I said, "Do me a favor," I hand them a piece of paper and a pen and said, "Write down the competitive advantage you're building in the future through the actions you're taking in the short run." I question how many could really do it. And even if they were able to write something down, if I handed it to another leader in the company and said, "Tell me the strategy of the company,
Right.
tell me the moat you're building," would they write down the same thing word for word? More often than not, no. So first, can we create clarity on the competitive advantage that we're building? 2, execution. Can we turn strategy into execution? Do we have a focused business plan we are staying focused on throughout the year that will lead to us owning and occupying a moat around the business? Then 3 was people. I had this realization that the purpose of our people was to achieve our goals. Goals changed every year, if not faster, but job descriptions did not. And I found myself wondering, how do you realign a workforce as priorities and goals shift, especially at our size? And the only way you could do that is if you looked at technology. And it was December of 22 when I saw ChatGPT for the first time. And when I saw it, I very much saw the next skill. I knew in my bones this was a big deal. But I also had all these limiting beliefs that I think a lot of people have had, which is, I'm so busy, I'll get to this later. Or you know what? I'll delegate this to my tech team. IT will figure this one out. But then a message that I learned in college came to the front of my mind. Focus on mastering the skills that are so valuable, they will serve you no matter where you go. Maril, I saw this as the next skill. And so I just said, you know what? I'm going to prioritize this. Once a day, I'm going to use this. The problem was I was using it for tactical things. I was asking myself the wrong questions, like, how do I use this to write a better email? And I wondered why, Maril, it felt like a waste of time. But then I wondered, what if it was me? What if it wasn't the tech? What if it was my application of it? And that's when I realized my whole career has been shaped by asking leaders the right questions to drive growth. Well, what if instead of asking AI questions, I could get AI to ask me the right questions? And that was the great unlock. That's when I discovered what it means to be the thought leader and to have AI as a thought partner. And I was in India every quarter. I'm at the chairman's house. I'm showing him how I'm using this for strategy, not for tactics. And he goes, "This is incredible." And I said, "I agree. It's the future." And he goes, "I agree." I said, "I think we should drive it through the whole company." He goes, "I agree." And then I said, "I think this is so important that you actually need to own this as chairman of the board." And he goes, "I disagree. How about you do it?" One problem, Maril. I know nothing about AI. I'm not technical. But something I learned from my old business partner, Gary Keller, was that anytime you're hitting a ceiling of achievement, you are just missing a person. Asking how can I drive this through our company was the wrong question. Asking who can I get into relationship with that could enable me to drive this through the company, right question. And that led to a partnership with Google. And by working with them, I learned a lot about the tech and how to identify use cases and to drive it through a company. And that's when I realized there was an even bigger problem because everybody is treating AI like this solution, looking for a problem. But it is not technology first, strategy second. It is strategy first, technology second. But nobody was talking about the difference that makes the difference, which is you as a leader. So January 24, I resigned as chief growth officer and said, I'm going to write a book about this. I'm going to build a company based on it. The AI Driven Leader is now the #1 book in the world for its category. And my company, AI Leadership, has been an absolute rocket ship in terms of helping enterprises understand how do you harness AI to increase enterprise value and build a sustainable competitive advantage.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. And you mentioned the term thought partner. How do you
Yeah.
use AI as a thought partner?
Best way I can describe it is a story. And then I will recap
Okay.
what the core elements are. I sat down with a group of CEOs and I asked them, what are the biggest problems you are facing in your business that if we could solve them right now would unlock a new level of growth? The question itself is strategic. It is designed to cut the crap, to cut out 80+% of the potential use cases. It's not how do I write a better email? How do I generate an image? How do I write a poem to sound like Taylor Swift? It's the things that matter most that will unlock growth. One CEO looks at me. He says, I got a big problem. I run a manufacturing company here in the US. I leased all this capital equipment from a company in Japan. Things have shifted in the market. The debt structure is killing us. We're going to go bankrupt if we don't get it restructured. And I'm thinking, is this a 20% priority that's going to drive 80? Oh, yeah, this will drive 80% of his results. Okay, so we dive in. What have you done? And he said, I feel like we've tried everything. And he lists 5 strategies he's deployed. And then he says, none of this has worked because this is a public company in Japan. The board is refusing to restructure the debt because they think they'll lose face in Japanese society. I have no next step. I think we're going out of business. Can AI help? That was the right question. Now, I have a framework for prompting called CRIT, context, role, interview, task. For those of you listening or watching this, if you only take one thing from this episode, it is CRIT, context, role, interview, task. You give AI lots of context, you assign it a role, meaning you tell AI the type of expert you want it to become for this use case. Interview is the game changer. I say, interview me. Ask me one question at a time, up to 3 questions to gain deeper context. Then task is what you want AI to do. So here was the actual prompt I wrote, word for word. Context. I'm the CEO of a manufacturing company here in the US. We leased all this capital equipment from a company in Japan, but things have shifted in the market. The debt structure is killing us, and we're going to go bankrupt if it does not get restructured. I feel like we've tried everything. Here's the 5 strategies we've deployed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. None of it has worked because this is a public company in Japan, and the board is refusing to restructure the debt because they think they'll lose face in Japanese society. I have no next step, and I fear we're going out of business. That was the context section. Then I put role. Your role is to act as an investment banker with deep expertise in restructuring debt. Interview. Interview me. Ask me one question at a time, up to 3 questions to gain deeper context. Then task. Your task is then to generate 5 non-obvious strategies I could deploy to get the board to restructure the debt. That was one comprehensive prompt. Now, I know a lot of you listening or watching this are thinking, I had no idea you could say all that to ChatGPT or to Copilot. Yes, you can. This is not your Google. And AI immediately turned the tables and it asked a really sharp question. It asked, do you have any relationships with any other influential executives in Japan that the board would respect? Maril, I turned and I looked at the CEO and he goes, oh my gosh, I would have never asked that question. I actually do. And then it asks 2 more questions like that and comes back and says, here's your 5 non-obvious strategies. Number 1 on the list, the Saving Face Consortium. It said, you have enough relationships with all the right people in Japan. Just approach them to acquire your debt. Give them really favorable terms. The debt gets restructured. The board saves face. Maril, I turn and I look at him. His whole body language has shifted. And he's actually holding back tears. And he turns and looks at the other people in the room and he says, I haven't slept in 90 days.
Well,
I've literally been making peace with the fact that we're going out of business. But in less than 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I got hope. 2 months later, my phone rings and it says, the ball is moving. I actually think this is going to get done. Here's why this matters, and here's what it means to use this as a thought partner. What if the biggest threat to your competition or the biggest threat to your business was not your competition, but it was how you were thinking? And what if your ability to think strategically was the difference between growing your business or going out of business? What does it mean to use AI as a thought partner? It means to address your biggest goals or your toughest challenges and to no longer do it alone, but to recognize that at your fingertips, you now have access to the data of the world and the most powerful processing powerhouse you have ever imagined, to process that data and harness it for your advantage. And it starts when you stop treating this like some Google or an assistant to help you write a better email, and you start treating this like a strategic thought partner that you don't ask questions to. You turn the tables and you have it interview you to enhance how you think.
what I just found so incredible about this too is how joyful and positive you are about bringing AI into the solution when most consultants are worrying that AI is going to put them out of business. You've actually created a whole business by bringing forth the AI
and by the
power.
way, when I first realized that I could get AI to ask the right questions or better ones than I could do alone, I felt fear and anxiety, Maril, because how I've made all my money historically was being the coach, being the advisor. And I went, oh my gosh, that's going to go away. But then it was very purposeful. I thought, I can choose the type of questions I ask myself. If I ask, how is this going to take my job? I can absolutely find a solution for that. If I ask, how might this liberate me to play at an even higher level? How might this be my great enhancement, not my great replacement? I was able to find answers to that as well. The mindset is everything.
I certainly believe that. You know, we always say the greatest story is the one you tell yourself.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
what now do you see as your role? What's shifted now that you have AI as your thought power? What's your superpower?
3, communication, connection, and creation. So communication, I have figured out that I have an ability to make complicated things feel very simple, like AI, and I have an ability to galvanize a room into action. You saw it at the when I spoke on stage at the
I
WPO event.
did.
Yeah, I'm a world-class thought leader and ambassador of a brand. So me being behind a mic right now, this is me
Uh-huh.
playing to my strengths. That's one, that's communication. Connection, I am a super connector. I am world class at forming relationships with other people, but also connecting people to other people, ideas, opportunities, and resources. And I built an entire business around connection where it's not about you having all the answers with AI. It's about pulling you into an executive network called the Collective, where you're in a cohort of 100 to 120 other C-level executives, where we connect people to other people, ideas, opportunities, and resources so that you harness AI to drive enterprise value and build a competitive advantage. And then creation, I'm a visionary. I can literally see the future. And I'm getting in the driver's seat and creating it specifically around creating a new category of leader, which is an AI driven leader.
So talk a little bit about the AI collective and what
Yeah.
you're doing with that.
My whole career, I kept saying I asked leaders the right questions to unlock growth. I was never the guy with all the answers. And I thought, what if your advantage with AI was not knowing everything about AI? Because you can't. It's moving so fast. There's not a single person that can know it all. But what if the real advantage was just surrounding yourself with the right people? Asking the right questions and tapping into collective knowledge. What would it look like if you could? I mean, every leader knows AI is the future. They don't know where to start or what to do next. They all think they're falling behind, and they are, by the way. But what if the way to win was not to just hire some consultant, because now you're shackled to what they know? But what if instead we chose to view this as a massive collaboration, where you could be surrounded by 100 to 120 other C-level executives that are driving this very strategically in their company. None of them are technical, they're strategic. And you are sharing how each of you is approaching driving this in your company. What's working, what's not working. You would move so much faster than your competition could ever move. And we are already seeing it happen where we are literally seeing people come into the collective. Some of them have barely touched AI before. And in their first 90 days, they are having 7, 8, 9-figure impact, financial impacts to their business in a positive way because they are learning how to drive this strategically and they're not doing it alone.
And I know you've talked a lot too about using AI to turn data into decisions. And is that's some of what I imagine you're doing with the collective?
Sure, sure. Well, and one is recognizing that every business collects data. But how do you shift it from something that you collect that happens to be that's siloed across all your different products? And how do you treat it like the nucleus and heartbeat of your company? How do you treat it into a core asset that if you were able to centralize it and then make it accessible through artificial intelligence? Oh my gosh. I mean, I'll give you an example. Um, I've done a lot of speaking this last year, and my old way of improving is that after every single time I would talk, I would think about what went well, what didn't went well, and I would made some tweaks. Well, I chose a different path. I have built my own AI board because as a CEO, it's lonely at the top and I don't have a real board. So I gave AI my 10-year vision. I told it my strengths and weaknesses as a CEO, and I had to identify the gaps that I personally had in my leadership that I would want to acquire if I were to assemble a real board, and then built personality profiles for each director. Some are famous people and some are just a combination of specific traits. So Steve Jobs, for example, is on my AI board for vision, product design, and storytelling. He is not allowed to give me advice on being a husband and a father or a leader, though. Warren Buffett is on my board for long-term planning and risk mitigation. My future self, 30 years in the future, is on my board so I can talk with the man I want to become today. Like, this is some crazy stuff. And by the way, this is with ChatGPT. I'm not using some fancy product here. This is ChatGPT. It's not the tech that makes the difference. It's the person who harnesses it. Here's how I harness data. I always have an AI note taker running when I do just about anything. So I took, at the time, the last 5 keynotes that I had done, fed it the transcripts of those keynotes. So it knew exactly what I said. I also fed it the conversion data of how many people were in the audience, because I track it, and how many people expressed interest in learning more about the collective. And I asked it to interview me to identify the shifts I would have to make in my keynote to up the conversion ethically. It's not a pitch fest at all. It's high value, and then people just want to join. It called on Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs starts interviewing me and asking me these questions. I was like, oh my gosh, it sounds exactly like him. But at one point, he stumped me with a question. And I turned to the tables and said, Steve, you know enough about the business. You know enough about the current version of the keynote and the conversion. How about you turn the tables and you pitch me my pitch as though it was the iPhone release? Maril, I kid you not, AI Steve Jobs turned the tables and pitched me my pitch. It floored me. By the way, I did this when I was sitting on the plane waiting to take off.
Wow.
It doubled our conversion rate. That's an example of how I've harnessed data to make better decisions.
So how did you create AI Steve Jobs?
Crit, context, role, interview, task, to make it really simple.
And all that came from just, I guess, regularly published information, or
Bingo.
yeah.
But regularly published information combined with it interviewing me about the bespoke application that I want Steve Jobs for in my business.
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting point.
Yes. Yes. Like, I'm not interested in Steve Jobs for everything.
Yeah.
I'm interested in him for vision, product design, and storytelling.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think right now, as you're working with people and really recruiting people into the collective, what do you see as the biggest obstacle in their mindsets?
Let's assume we're talking to a senior leader. They don't think this is their job. They think this is something they can hire a consultant for, or they think it's something that IT will figure out. They're not recognizing that this isn't about the tech. This is about vision, strategy, and leadership. Think of it this way. I have an image that I found of Fifth Avenue in New York City in 1900. It's all horse and buggy. And then if you look really close, there is one car. Then another image is of Fifth Avenue in New York City. It is 100% cars, 0 horse and buggy. The difference between all horse and buggy to all car was just 13 years. Kind of mind-blowing to think that in a 13-year span, you can go through that fast of a transition. Yeah. And I found myself wondering, is AI going to give us that much time? I don't think so. According to Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, everything you know about your company is going to change in the next 5 years. Not 10, not 13, 5.
Yeah.
Now, as a CEO, as a leader, if I am told that there is a technical tidal wave that is coming, that is literally going to change absolutely everything you know about your company, when would you want to prioritize? Is that something that you say, let me hire a consultant or let me delegate that to IT? Heck no. You say, I got to get in front of this. Don't know how to use AI? Figure it out. Get in the driver's seat because this is your job. It's on you to learn enough about the technology so that you can cast a vision for the future when we're telling you the future is going to change. To define your strategy to win, because whatever you thought was your competitive advantage, you now have to question if it's still valuable, defensible, sustainable. You have to redefine your strategy, and then you have to lead your team from where they are to where they will be. You have to become an AI-driven leader. That's what people don't fully grasp yet.
Yeah, this is why I was so excited when I heard you, because I'm not a technical person, but I love
Me-
it for all the reasons you just said. You know,
Ask me how many lines of code I've written in my life. Zero.
yeah, yeah. But it's such an incredible playground for somebody who wants to do something big. It's
Oh,
really
yeah.
great.
Well, and what's blowing my mind, Maril, is every single time I think I'm thinking big, I discover I'm still thinking too small.
Yeah.
I mean, this is real use case. Exactly a week ago, I was on a flight to New York, and I have a sense of where we're going to finish this year revenue-wise. It's a decent sized number. My goal originally was that within 10 years, we 25x that number. I mean, that's a big company.
Yeah.
And I found myself realizing it was the wrong goal because it doesn't even feel impossible or stretch. It feels straight up doable, which means it's the wrong goal. And so I found myself asking, what would an impossible goal feel like? What's a goal I could set that would be so big that it would scare me? And I thought, well, what if I took that 10-year number and I added a 0? And then I collapsed the timeline from 10 years to 3 years. So that's a 250x revenue growth in 3 years. That made me feel sick to my stomach the moment I said it. But then I went to my AI board and I wrote crit context. I gave it all the context of what I'm telling you and a lot more. And then the role was to act as the board and who had the sufficiency to help me 250x the revenue of the company in the next 3 years. It then had to interview me, asking one question at a time to understand deeply what are we doing that we need to hold on to because it has the sufficiency to scale that much. What's the stuff we're currently doing that seems attractive for the current business model that we'd have to kill because it would actually be a distraction from the scale that we want to achieve and the impact that we want to make. And the task was then to create an updated plan of how we could achieve 250x revenue in the next 3 years. That was a strategic use case. And it came up with a plan that blew my mind. That when I looked at that, I'm like, you know what? That feels doable. Maybe I need to raise the number again. This is not the kind of stuff I could have done before AI. Or if I could have, I mean, we would be talking weeks, months worth of work that now I'm literally getting done in hours or minutes.
Are you going to tell us what you're going to do?
No, no. But I will tell you the things that it has called out every time I've used my AI board for stuff like this. Like it literally called out future product offerings that at the time I was like, I don't know, that have actually become their what's next.
When will we start seeing some of this rolling out?
We'll see. At a high level, the shift was instead of, I always believe the collective in terms of like having 100 to 120 different C-level executives from different companies will be our core. As like, think of that more as the playground. That's where we get to test ideas out. But the real scale play is an enterprise offering of deploying that inside an enterprise to literally collapse the silos and align a senior leadership team like the top 50 or 100 to actually transform the company to drive the enterprise value through the roof. I've already done it before with Jindal. Now it's doing it at a bigger scale.
What are and obviously I'm not asking you to give away your future plans, but In terms of what you did with Gentle, what were some of the key drivers to really grow at scale?
It's actually not that complicated. Um, and don't let the simplicity undermine the significance. Creating true clarity and alignment around strategy, around the moat you're building, and ensuring that your business plan for the year that you're executing is in alignment with the strategy. Most companies don't have that. And if you looked at a business plan of a company, most of them treat it like a long list of all the things they want to do, rather than a short, focused list of the 20% priorities they need to focus on that will drive 80% of the results. I used to lead strategic planning for a company that delivers all your packages.
Mhm.
When I stepped in to facilitate their offsite, their plan was 21 pages long. By the time we were done, just because I knew how to ask the right questions, it was one page. One page to align a workforce of 500,000 people. That's immensely powerful. Most people don't have that level of focus. They are so tied to saying yes to doing more, but not
Right.
recognizing that every time they add something new to the plate, they're saying no to everything else and cutting the fat. Companies aren't great at that. And this is just timeless. How do you align strategy and execution? Now, how do you transform to become an AI driven workforce and an AI driven organization? That's a whole nother layer that people don't comprehend. If you can weave those things together, strategy, execution, and I mean, I told you we are seeing companies in their first 90 days with us drop 7, 8, 9 figures in financial impact to the company. Now take the multiple that that company trades at. Let's say it's 10 times revenue. If you drop a $500,000 to the bottom line, that's $5 million in enterprise value. You drop 50 million bucks to the bottom line, that's $500 million in enterprise
Right.
value. This is where the game really starts to shift. But most people still are thinking of AI like like a replacement for Google or like an assistant to help them write better emails. And my goal in writing the AI driven leader was to wake leaders up and say, quit focusing. Don't worry about the 80% tactical use cases because they only drive 20% of your results. Let's focus on the 20% priorities that drive 80% of your results. Let's harness this to create better leaders. Let's build a better business and let's create better lives.
When you see a company really drive this adoption throughout their business and get those kind of results, what's enabling them to really create that adoption so quickly?
Hope, endless possibilities, um, liberation, freedom. And here's what I mean by that. How many of you believe that your highest calling on this planet is to go through a good majority of your waking hours checking email, bouncing from meeting to meeting, and then trying to triage your to do list, most of which is filled with low value tasks? None of us. Yet, what do most people spend most of their time doing? Checking email, Slack or Teams, bouncing from meeting to meeting, saying yes if somebody says, hey, you got a minute, which means it's their priorities, not yours. And then with the time you have left, you're trying to get through your to-do list, which is a long list, mostly filled with 80% tasks that drive 20% of the results. Then when you're at home with your family, you're not home with your family, are you? Or is your mind still at work, thinking about the things you could have gotten done that you didn't get done that would have actually moved the needle? You repeat that over a lifetime, that's a life of regret. And by the way, that's you acting like a machine. That comes from the Industrial Revolution. We stopped acting like humans and started acting like
Yeah.
machines when the assembly line came out. I think this is not the great disruptor. I think this is the great liberator because isn't it ironic that a machine might be the thing that returns us to what makes us human? But to free us up from all the low value stuff, to truly harness our strengths as humans, focus it on the priorities of our role in alignment with company goals, and use AI to enhance us. Because I don't believe it will ever replace us. Now, will it make certain skills you are applying and processes you are following obsolete? Absolutely. I say hallelujah to that. But
Yeah.
this is where you get to go on a journey to reimagine who you can become because you are more than what you do right now.
Geoff, I promised you that I wouldn't keep you more than 45 minutes, and I see we're coming up on the time. As much as I'd love to keep this going, so let me just ask you one more thing. What do
Sure.
you believe leaders need to let go of?
Who they used to be. Anchoring your identity to who you've been in the past shackles you to your past outcomes. Yet, if you want to achieve greater things in the future, personally and professionally, you have to be willing to let go of the way things used to be and reimagine who you can become. Because I'm going to tell you, like, if you've been in finance your whole career, that doesn't matter. You've been in marketing your whole career, that doesn't matter. You've been in operations your whole career, that doesn't matter, because AI just democratized expertise. Learning, it's a shift away from being the player of an instrument in an orchestra toward becoming the conductor of teams and technology. You don't have to have deep expertise in a subject matter to be impactful. It's about learning how to lead teams that are a combination of humans and AI to achieve your greatest goals and solve your most complicated problems. And I'm telling you, you can do this. And it starts once a day, every day. Ask, how can AI help me do this? And pick something you're doing. How can it help you do this? No idea. How do you write the prompt? Crit. Context, role, interview, task. You write crit once a day for the next 30 days, you'll be playing a very different game.
Oh, this was awesome. I wish we could keep going, but I'm keeping my promise. And everybody, look for the book. Geoff Woods, the AI-driven leader. Thank you so much, Geoff.
And a humble request, if you do get the book and it brings value to you, please leave a review. It's the number one thing that causes the book to get shared more. And I will say probably 5 times a day, I see a different person talk about the book and like take a picture and write about it and they tag me. I actually respond to every single one of those. It helps the book reach more people, which I am just on a mission to make the biggest impact possible. That is hugely helpful. And if you want to learn more about what we do, AI Leadership is our website.
Thank you again.
Thanks, Maril.
Take care. Thanks for listening to this episode of Let Go and Lead. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. If you found this episode insightful, please follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and subscribe to us on YouTube. And don't forget to check out past episodes and interviews on geoghanmacdonald.com. Thanks for joining and see you on the next episode of Let Go and Lead.